you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Fancy seeing you here. It's been a long time.
I know it's been shocking amounts of time since we last seen each other.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome to the B Squared podcast, where we promise to be full of energy, but we don't sound too energetic so far.
I'm pretty energetic. I'm just figuring things out. And the problem is I'm cold. Like, let's be clear here. I've lost my beard. Health and safety took it for the week, so I am sitting here feeling cold in so many levels.
Oh,
I know.
you can buy a fake beard and wear it.
I thought about that, but unfortunately, that still doesn't get you past the health and safety inspector. They actually want you clean
Yeah,
shaven.
that's fair. You could rip it off in case of emergency.
Oh yeah,
Anyway,
fit tests. Who would have known?
thanks for joining us on the B Squared Natural Capital podcast. To talk about natural capital and ways we can improve our mining operations in particular to make the most out of natural capital, because that's what it's all about, mining. We're an extractive industry. We're an industry that uses a lot of different forms of natural capital, be it water, tailings, or other items we've talked about. And we want people to go out there and try to make their operations better, because we think there's a lot of scope for improvement in a lot of places. Today, we're going to talk a bit about water and thickeners and what can be done with a thickener with incredibly good payback, usually, and something that might be worth a try.
So I think we got a new record water price. For all that we talk
Oh,
about the
yes.
cost of water, the cost that came across my desk a couple weeks ago was someone was paying $26 a cubic meter or 26.75 a cubic meter to dispose of water.
26.75 a cubic meter.
To
That's
dispose
a
of
big
water.
number.
Yeah.
You sure that wasn't cents?
No, $26.75 a cubic meter to dispose of water on a water license.
Wow.
In a
That's
water rich
something else.
area, they needed to optimize their water, and every cubic meter they got rid of was 26.75. And here's what's interesting. If you go to someplace like Sudbury or someplace in a water rich area like Ontario, it's pretty easy to get a meter and a half a year of rain. British
Yep.
Columbia, you can get 2 meters a year. So if you're dealing with a process that's particularly toxic and every meter you get rid of costs 26.75, you want to tighten every part of that water system as much as possible.
Absolutely. And that's just cost. That's not even talking about value. Obviously, they had value that was in excess of that for the water they used, but that's just
Hopefully.
cost. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool.
So we
So let's talk about thickeners. Let's talk particularly big thickeners. So let's talk tails, thickeners, and stuff like that. And I've recently spent a bit of time looking at this and thinking about this. And two things really amaze me. The first one is how many thickeners out there, especially big tailings thickeners, aren't optimized and are running at percent solids significantly lower than they could be. So when I say percent solids significantly lower, I don't want to jargon this podcast and make it only applicable to metallurgists and people who speak my language. I want other people in other professions around the industry to listen and think about these things. So a thickener is a big settling device. More or less, you put your slurry into it, so your mix of solids and water. Ideally, the water flows over the top and is recycled and reused, and the solids settle out and are concentrated. So it might go in at 20% solids by weight or 30% solids by weight. And ideally, it's coming out somewhere between 50 and 60% solids, maybe in higher in some cases, but in that general range by weight. And the higher the percent solids coming out the bottom equates to the more water that is coming off the top.
I'm impressed that that was your attempt at de-jargonizing thickeners. I mean, let's be clear here for a second, okay? You just used about 15 de-jargonized words, one
Oh
after
no, come
another.
on.
Oh, yes. So look,
Please give us feedback. Say Ben's jargon wasn't bad and Benjamin's full of it. We would appreciate that.
a thickener looks like either an ice cream machine or a KitchenAid mixer, where you have a big paddle there and a little hole in the bottom, and the goal is to figure out how your underflow and overflow. I get your water density so your solids settle slowly and you end up with the right mix of water and solids. So imagine you're making your sourdough starter and you want to get the moisture out of it, but you can't go too fast. And
This
you
is wait,
spend
wait, wait,
12.
wait. This isn't 2020. You're not making sourdough starters.
Oh, people are making
That was
sourdough
a
starter.
COVID thing.
I am from the land of the frog. Let's be clear
And you
here.
had a machine that does that?
Yeah, people have machines who optimize sourdough
You-
starters. It's called a mason jar.
They don't
And you
look like
stir them very
thickeners.
slowly. And you have to make a decision that it takes 24, 36 hours. You feed them, and 24 hours later, you know if you made the right decision or if you made your sourdough starter die.
It sounds like you being a troll and being fed. Anyway,
Operating
okay.
a thickener is very much like keeping a sourdough starter alive. It's the same basic problem. And the problem is humans are really bad at making 12-hour deferred decisions. Humans are just bad at this stuff. So you got this piece of equipment, you got to make a decision, and you're basically driving it with a 12-hour or 24-hour lag where minute differences change things. And you're trying to make sure that you don't stuff it up, because if you stuff it up to the point where it doesn't function, the entire mine shuts down, you got to dig it out. So everyone
Constipation.
is incentivized. What?
It's like constipation.
I know. And when you constipate a mine, the world comes to an end.
Because usually it's at the rear end, yeah.
So we all want to take as much laxatives as we can. The problem with laxatives is at some point you end up with a tailings dam that fundamentally fails or has a real issue because you have too much water above it. So you're dealing with this very
Oh my
expensive
God.
commodity, which is
I
called
can't
water.
believe you pulled that analogy off.
I am smooth.
You
Okay.
are baby-faced
I
Benjamin
know
to
the
pull it off.
moment they take my beard away, I just get smooth and relaxed.
Anyway, coming back to the thickener, the points were, um, it's a machine that can recover water to your plant without sending it out to the dam.
Which is
A
lovely.
lot of them are far from optimized. I don't think I got to make my second point because you started on sourdough starters. They're a very slow process, so humans aren't very good at controlling them. And to be honest, as a young metallurgist, I found them really boring. I actually wrote a post on LinkedIn about this a few weeks ago with the hashtag thickeners are boring, which upset a lot of metallurgists, but I think some agreed in the end. Anyway,
Again,
coming back to
why
it.
would you not upset a metallurgist?
Oh, that is that a riddle?
No, it's just I couldn't
Dual
imagine you
mantra.
upsetting a metallurgist. I mean, they all love you so much.
Yeah. Anyway, coming back to it, one of the key things, these machines do control a lot of the water balance and have a major impact on your water balance in a processing plant. So actually tuning them in, getting them right, maximizing the amount of water coming back, and trying to get that density and that amount of solids in the underflow as high as possible actually does make a difference. I've done some math, and for an example, on a 100,000 ton per hour concentrator, if you can increase the percent solids in the underflow by one or by about 2%, at that kind of tonnage rate, you're probably saving 2 to 3 million cubic meters of water a year from going out to the dam.
On a 100,000 ton per day concentrator, which would be a 2.4 million ton per day concentrator, or the largest concentrator in the world times five, no, times six. You did 100,000 ton per hour versus 100,000 ton per day, I think.
I said 100,000 tons per day.
I will guarantee you said 100,000 tons per hour. Do you want to put some money on this? I'll put $20 on this.
We can have $20 on this. I said
Cool.
100,000 tons per day.
We'll have to figure this out at the end.
Yes.
One of us
Anyway,
is getting free beer.
100,000 ton per day concentrator, running at a reasonable level still, couple of percent improvement. and
Mhm.
you're talking 2 to 3 million cubic meters of water a year you can save just by optimizing this one unit. And
Yeah,
in
think
fair
about
enough,
it.
in a plant that size, you've probably got more than one, but you can get by with one.
Think about it at like a point 0.5 or point 0.7, 0.05 or 0.07 cubic meters per dry metric ton of savings. Is the order of magnitude. So you're talking about between 5,000 and 7,000 um, cubic meters a day of water savings.
Yes.
And
Not
you can look
100.
at this in another perspective. You can look at that as enough water to basically add 15,000 tons a day of copper production in Chile. Or if you're paying $25 a cubic meter to get rid of water, that's enough water discharge to basically pay off a small kingdom in most of the rest of the world where water is expensive. Because if you can't get it back to your mill, and if it goes to your dam and you have to pay to deal with it off the dam, it can get really expensive. So there's it's a $1 billion MPV shift for a copper concentrator in Chile.
Yeah. Yeah.
How much is it going to
It's
cost
kind of
me
nuts.
with the control
Anyway,
system in?
I don't know. You were going to tell me.
I don't know.
I
What's
was
your
going to
number?
start before we get to control system. I'm about to say there's a number of ways you can optimize it. Um, Commonly, there's things like changing the feed setup because how you feed these things, like many other pieces of equipment in mineral processing, it matters. Another good option, well, you can just replace an old one with a new one. There's plenty 50-year-old plus thickeners running out there, and new technology has got more efficient. And probably the third most common way, or not, it might be more common than some of the others, is to go and automate your thickener a bit and get a bit of a control system around it. So it actually makes decisions on an appropriate time scale. Once again, we said it takes a while to make decisions as opposed to um, humans who like making relatively quick decisions. We're not good at making a change and then waiting 36 hours to see what happens, or 24 hours, or 12 hours for that matter. And that's the kind of range these things run in. So, having a control system and implementing a control system around your thickener isn't a terrible idea. Now, it depends how old your thickener is and how it's set up. You might have to add some more measurements and some more automation around it just to facilitate this. But I'm pretty sure there's companies, or I know for a fact there's a lot of companies out there offering control systems around these units, and they're relatively cheap. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Okay.
So it's something that's definitely worth a try to try and
So you're telling me you can
optimize
debottleneck
things.
a mine, produce $1 billion MPV shift for hundreds of thousands of dollars. So why hasn't everyone done it? What's been the fundamental reason why no one has done this, if it's so obvious?
I think personally, because hashtag thickeners are boring, because they sit at the end of the plant, and until they have a really big problem, people don't give them a lot of attention. There's so many more sexy things like mills and float cells and things upstream of them that especially a lot of the metallurgists and processing people spend their time optimizing. And if the
Um,
thickener isn't having a big problem, people leave it alone and tend to ignore it.
how many metallurgists do you know that write real value cases versus cost cases?
Oh, that's a whole other question. Um, I'm going to say not a lot of metallurgists write proper value cases, but explain what you mean by proper value cases.
So the thing about thickener is if you look at it from a cost perspective, if water is free, and under all accounting systems, water is free.
Yeah, then you're only valuing the flock, which really doesn't isn't a major operating cost for anyone.
Yeah. So in my mind, I think the reason why they're not upgraded is not because they're a dumb upgrade or a smart upgrade. It's because the core metric that is being conserved by upgrading them isn't valued.
Which is water recovery.
Or tailings risk. 3% of all tailings dams have some sort of failure risk every year, something stupid like that. Or 3% of all tailings dams fail. I forget what the statistic is. But either way, the number's too big.
Yep.
So what do you have to attach value, not cost, to a thickener to justify upgrading it because they're
Okay.
cheap. They're pennies
Well,
to run.
as the point you made, if it's a water scarce area and water is a limiting factor in your production, pulling more off in the plant and keeping it there is probably has a pretty solid value case.
I've never modeled one that's worth less than $500 million.
Half a what?
Half a bill.
With a B.
Yeah.
Interesting.
$500 million for a $500,000 investment.
That sounds pretty good.
You can pay for a lot of engineering studies for that.
But surely that's in a very dry place.
It doesn't have to be very dry. Look, in a water-rich place, the example that came up at that 26 or $29, whatever the number was per cubic meter, even a water-rich place, optimizing the thickener has value. Heck, at $29, and sorry, my glasses are dirty, but at $29 a cubic meter, you don't want
It's now
any water to
$29 a
dam
cubic
you can't
meter?
afford.
Didn't it start at $25 a cubic meter?
I don't remember what the number was. It was well over 26 or 27. It was a big number. But look, no one's ever paid more than 20 cents for water. Don't you know that water is free?
Falls from the sky.
Yeah. So why worry about it? Either you have too much of it, it's very expensive to get rid of, to recertify to go back into the river, or you don't have enough of it and you're desperate to get it.
Yep. Yep. For sure.
So either way, the water value of a thickener is massive.
Hmm.
I mean, I believe that you either want to tighten up your water systems, no matter what you want to do in this day and age with natural capital being expensive, especially water licenses, you just don't want to use any water you don't want to touch. And the control system is going to get you water back to the mill. What? It takes 60 days to get it off of the dam? 30 days? 40
Yeah.
days?
Plus, while it's sitting out on a dam, generally it'll have metals and other nasty things leaching into it a little bit. So it's going to be a bit more change than it would be if it went straight back into the plant.
Oh, I think everyone likes metal enriched water.
Of mineral water, we pay a fortune for it in the store. You'll pay even more for it if you discharge it into a public waterway.
I think that some of the water that you get at a nice, good copper porphyry. I mean, who doesn't want water that's 20 to 30 parts per million arsenic?
Don't be that way, Benjamin.
I think
You
I'm
had to
fine.
bring
I mean,
arsenic
I don't know
back
about
into it.
you.
Anyway, the bottom line is there's a pretty good return on investment there. And there's a few choices you can choose for metrics. You may not need the crazy additional production allowed by water to actually justify something because we're talking about upgrades that are relatively cheap, such as the control system. And as another aspect, a lot of mining companies at the moment are very focused on ESG targets. A lot of them, unfortunately, a bit too focused probably on carbon emissions, which I don't think is one of our industry's biggest problems. But water definitely is one of our industry's biggest challenges, no matter where we are in the world and managing it correctly. So if you've got some money and you want a big ESG return and want to start managing that water better and saving as much as possible for reuse so you don't have to draw new water, thinking about the thickener and focusing on simple things like a decent control system for it, it's probably not a bad way forward.
So, what you're saying is thickeners are boring.
Yes,
Thickeners are also worth billions of dollars.
essentially.
Yeah. And no one cares because no one builds value cases.
Yeah. But
So
that
what is your
also,
solution?
if
How
you
would
if
you
you
go?
align all those, if you align all those, it's also a huge area of opportunity that we
Okay, so
probably overlook.
I'm going to challenge you, Ben. I'm giving
Yes.
you $250,000. How are you going to go about going and fixing this?
Well, I think the most sensible way to do what to do first is to have a look at what the thickener is actually producing over time. Is it consistent? Is it varying a lot in its underflow density? And is it working where you want it to work?
How many
Um,
days, weeks, or months of data do you need?
well, if you most plants have got a density gauge and are tracking what is going out the end of the tailings thickener. So I'd grab the data historian and look at it over a period, a few months, 6 months, a year, depending what you have and how long you've been running. I'd then
Okay.
look at that and do a bit of an audit on the control equipment. So the variables you have around the thickener that are instrumented, automated, and you can control. It might be underflow pumps. It might be checking you've got that density gauge we talked about. There are definitely other options. I'd do that audit. And then I'd start talking to some of the people, and I think most of the major vendors have thickener control systems, along with a few specialized control vendors. Go to them, talk to them about what you have. They'll probably ask to see your trends and your historical data anyway. They'll probably want a bit of information about your ore and what instrumentation you have got around it. And from there, they can help work with you to develop a plan and to cost a plan. And then you've got something to work out your value case with because you know what this costs.
So let's work this through. So what you're saying is get a log, get a month, a quarter, however long period you can get.
In history, yep.
Look at the variation. So basically, if it ranges from 42% density to 56% density, you have a drunken thickener that fundamentally it should not be allowed to drive. It's
Well,
way
that
out
and
of
is it
control.
being controlled to where you want it? That's a whole other thing. If you're running it, once again, you can do some of this stuff fairly easily. There's a lot of work being done around the world in different areas on thickeners, ironically enough, talking about what density they're outputting, what their underflow percent solids is. Have a look around you.
We know
Is
based on data we've collected that most Australian thickeners are in the 62, 63% range that are well
Yeah,
run. And we
yeah,
know most Chilean thickeners are below 60.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
clearly
Exactly.
gravity works differently in Chile.
And there
It's a
can be
different planet,
reasons for
isn't
that.
it?
No, don't be that way. But there can be reasons for that. There might be the grind size of the ore. There might be pumping and rheology issues if it gets too dense. But if you don't go and look at it, you won't know. And even if you hit a rheology issue, there's some brilliant consultants out there who focus on this kind of work. Go have a discussion with them. Figure out what you need to do to move that stuff. If you do remove more water. Once again, these aren't insurmountable problems. These are simple things.
Can you explain rheology for those of us who do not have 27 trillion years of metallurgy? I mean, look at the gray hairs on your head.
I'm looking for them. I'd like to have some grey hairs on my head. I could then be distinguished.
I think you are
Um,
distinguished.
Rheology is the study of looking at how fluids flow through things like pipes. Well, fluids flow, full stop. And if you're very fine or if you're very dense, you can have problems with flow and the stuff just doesn't flow. It becomes constipated. And
I'm
that's a
very
concern for some people, but I've heard people invoke it in various situations where they're just using it as an excuse not to do anything. If it is a genuine concern, go speak to someone. There's lots of consultants out there who specialized in this now. 20 years ago, there wasn't. Now there is.
So your goal is to get the thickener thick enough so the stuff will still flow to the tailings impoundment or filter
Yeah,
press,
or be
wherever the
pumped.
next customer is, but not so thick that it stops up in the pipe.
Yeah, absolutely. Or it goes beyond the capabilities of your pump. No, your whole pumping system, you're pumping in, you're piping.
Okay. So we know what we want to accomplish. We know the price, we know the structure, we know the value.
Yep.
My question to you, Ben, then is do I want to hire you or do I want to hire a generic EPCM to do this work?
I think if you need the for the engineering and making sure everything's just so, I would definitely recommend going to a consultant who does a lot of this work or an EPCM. Um, but
And
to
if I need
build
a
the
business
actual
case?
value case, sorry,
And if I need a business case?
if you need a business case, someone like B Squared, that's what we specialize in. Looking at these things, helping piece the business case around the natural capital improvement you're going to get by upgrading this piece of equipment.
And this is where this particular one drives me crazy because the cost to write the business case is arguably 20 to 30% the cost of the thickener upgrade.
Okay.
Yet, here's the interesting thing from my perspective. The payback time on the thickener upgrades most of the model have been less than 12 days. The payback time on writing the business case to justify that is normally less than 3 days. So 3 days, you can pay back the cost of writing the case in less than 3 days. You can pay for the thickener in 12 days. And that 12 days comes with the engineering cost. Most of these upgrades are incredibly cheap versus
Yep.
days payback. I have yet to model a thickener upgrade that has an IRR of less than 500%. It's kind of cool.
There you go.
Not that you're looking at these things.
Yeah.
Excellent. So what are we going to talk about next week? Put you on the spot. Or the week after next?
Honestly, I think next week, I'm not sure. Where do you want to go next?
Well, we really, I think, have two choices. One is pumps,
Okay.
and the second one is the value of human capital and finding the right people from a natural capital perspective.
Ooh. That might be a fun one to do next week to break up the technical topics.
Human capital, what a horrible thought. Excellent.
Yeah, let's chat about that next time we meet.
Well,
Awesome, Benjamin.
hope to see
It's
you
been
soon.
fun.
It's been so
And
much
once
fun. And
again,
now I've got to go like deal with my beard because like this itches. They really should not make people shave.
we'll go get you a fake one. We'll go shave a local reindeer and make a reindeer hair beard.
Have you
Reindeer hair?
seen some of those new Halloween costumes? And some of the other ways that people are dealing with beards? Let's be clear here. I am not doing the fake beard.
No? Oh, shame. Anyway, thanks for listening. It's always fun. It's always unpredictable what will happen. Once again, if you have questions or suggestions or topics you'd like to talk about around natural capital, please send us a note. Otherwise, we'll be back here in a couple of weeks to talk about human capital.
Cheers.
Cool. Bye.